Chelsea, 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 Chelsea.
The Chad Nice is off. He's had half a baby sham and he's chanting like a person who chants a lot. Right, we're back. Welcome back. I am Stanford Chidge, and this is the Chelsea FanCast, and this is Pablo, and this is Ross, and this is the lovely Darren, and they are the loud benches, which is what we like. Now, we were about to get into a good old coating of the referee and particularly the linesman, and I think with absolute assurity, Darren, because I think they were absolutely pitiful. They missed the handball, which I was moaning about before we went to the break.
Quickly on that, I've got to say it's not a red card handling the ball outside the box.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, the officials had a poor game. They missed it.
They missed it. Why isn't it? I thought it was a red card.
It's clear goal scoring opportunity and deliberate
handball is never a red card unless, as Paul says, it's denial of a goal scoring opportunity.
What I will say on the missed handball, obviously I basically wasn't really aware of what happened for either of the first goals because both of them happened kind of out of absolutely nothing. But
and you were hungover.
And that, but it wasn't so much that. I mean, I was kind of watching the game, but whatever. The noise from the crowd when the ball went to Marshall from everyone down in the shed and then like kind of parallel in the west and east made it so clear that it was out of the area. That many people couldn't have been wrong. So
well, I mean, we could see it, and I'm at the other end of the blooming.
Gary
ground.
kept saying that he was road to Matthew, but he was convinced. I wasn't actually sure, but Gary was convinced it was.
Anyway, back to my list because I've got a hit list here. He missed the handball. Chelsea's first goal. I mean, let's face it, by the letter of the law. I think we're struggling to see that as a legal goal, if you see what I mean.
And there was a foul on Etu, and then Etu was offside, and it hit him on the way in.
Exactly,
so
I know.
Calamity of errors.
And I mean, we were going on about the time wasting. I mean, it was just criminal. I mean, what I'm really getting on here is it was poor decisions all the time, but I really want to kind of get into what I think was the other big issue of the game, which is Jose getting sent off. And, I have a lot of sympathy for him losing his... I mean, look at that face. You got to love a manager he's like. I mean, I can't actually say what he's thinking there because we're forbidden by the list. But you know what? Come on. Anyway, I can understand his frustration because if he was half as frustrated as I was for almost that entire match at their blatant time-wasting tactics, and then for the ref to have a go at Branner, and as Steve Holland said, I think brilliantly in the presser afterwards, Branner had the ball for 2 seconds, and the ref's on him, and I don't blame Jose for going ballistic, but to send him off, I mean, actually, do you know what? Even Talk Sport said this afterwards. They said this referee, Anthony Taylor, was clearly, Les Van had said this about Graham Poll on a show I did once. If he was chocolate, he'd have licked himself. He was itching to make a name for himself by sending off, being the first ref to send Jose Mourinho off.
And I mean,
unbelievable.
It was literally just for that one outburst that lasted about 10 seconds, wasn't it?
He was well past the technical. He could have, just calmed him down, I know, but... He did go quite far out of the technical box to go down a touchdown.
That's never been an immediate sending off.
No, I don't deny it,
itself,
but I can see why when he was going down there. He deserved speaking to, but nothing more really.
Yeah, as you say, you can understand Jose's frustration because, as Steve Holland said, as he also said very excellently, he was excellent in the post-match stuff. Cardiff had been time wasting the entire game. Yeah. They'd spoken to the ref about it. And the Cardiff players were still time wasting up until, of course, we went ahead. And the moment Branner gets the ball, which it wasn't like it was straight to him. He was straight on him.
Let's not forget that he got the ball from Peter Whittingham for absolutely no reason at all, punting it all the way down the touchline for some bizarre reason.
Do you know what? I've got a theory because I like a theory all three, don't you? Mm-hmm. I've got a theory that basically the Baldies are the worst referees. The bald ones are the worst. Look at that rogues gallery there. We've got Anthony Taylor, right? We've got Howard Webb, we've got Lee Mason, and we've got Mike Dean. What a quartet that lot are. And I have to say, 2 of them have got particularly dodgy hand signals going on there.
In fairness, you have just...
Pre-war, I think, if you know what I mean. Anyway, go on.
I think there's only another 4 or 5 Premier League referees, and they're all just as bad, really.
But it's the bald ones. It's the baldies that are the worst.
Halsey, Clattenburg, they're all...
Well, I think you can count Clattenburg because he's had hair transplants, hasn't he?
But you know what, guys? Here's the thing. My gag doesn't work if you start including the ones with no hair.
It's only the bald ones, Chidge.
I mean, for goodness sake, get with the programme. I know we're only in part 2, but wake up. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, that is an appalling quartet of referees, isn't it? But Anthony Taylor... I actually, to find the pictures and find out who the bald ones were, because of course I forgot, I actually had to look at the Premier League list of refs. And there's a lot of refs on there, This is a serious point, actually. There's a lot of refs on there that I don't recognise, that are fairly new, that have, I think, clearly, come in as we've got rid of some of the...
But there's only about...
And they seem to be worse, though, Pablo. That's what my point is.
Well, I think they are, frankly. And then there's only like 5 or 6 who'll ever referee like a big game between like teams at the top of the table where it matters, and you can roll all of their names off. And at some point down the line, because there's only 5 or 6 of them, they've made bad decisions in these games. So there's no really
interesting
easy
stuff.
way
Chad Meister.
Yep.
Apart from my lovely mate Gary Lipp, who I do know, he's a bit follically challenged. I'll put it like that. But is there a sense amongst our people in Mixlr and Twitter that Chidge's theory is right, that the Baldies are the worst in terms of referees? I hasten to add.
Yeah, I mean, the two that come to my mind, I'm going to test Darren with this. Who was the referee for the 1994 FA Cup final?
Mr. Ellery.
Who was against Barcelona at
Over, bro.
Tom Henning of Rebay.
So, Chidge, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think there's a common theme there.
Exactly. If you're Baldy, then you will be a bad referee. I think that's what I'm saying.
They're all jealous of David Luiz, I think.
I think they must be. Anyway, we should get off the... no, I've got another rant. Yes. Who else upset me on Saturday? Who else do you think upset me on Saturday, Darren?
What, as in to do with the actual match?
Could have been anybody. Could have been anybody.
I can't think of anyone else that would have.
I'm going to help you out because I can see that you're drowning in a mire of
I
confusion.
really cannot.
Yeah. Go back to your Union Jack mug.
Right there,
See, we've got a script. You see, that's the clue.
Oh, wannabe Fergies.
Yes, that's right. I'm fed up. No, hang on. I'm fed up. I am absolutely fed up to the back teeth of another moaning, dour, grumpy Scottish manager. Go back there. I've had enough of them. And they're all wannabe Fergies. They come out like they think they're Sir Alex Ferguson because they speak in an accent exceedingly unintelligible. And they moan, and they moan, and they moan, and they moan. And again, I think half of it's because they're in the spotlight, because they're playing Chelsea, and they're up against Jose Mourinho. So they have to make a big fuss about something. Shut up.
All managers moan. It's kind of
but
part
the
of their
Scottish
job.
ones are the worst.
They just sound worse when they do.
They're moany, dour Scottish grumpy managers, and they're wannabe Fergies.
I personally much prefer to listen to any of them than Ian Holloway talk.
Well, now you do have a point there.
I like Ian Holloway, he's funny.
You do. I like Ollie, actually. He is mad, and I like it when he compares, makes Badger analogies, which I've found particularly
I just don't like how
funny.
he works himself up. You see, he says something stupid, then he has to think of something more stupid to continue it.
But I find that quite endearing, rather than I'm one of referees against us, Chelsea. Shut up, go away, I've had enough of you. Right, so Malky Mackay, the Malky Bar Kid. Right, now, another issue that we've got to discuss, because David Luiz. It had to happen on the weekend when our mate Paul Crowder, who, of course, A, was here last week, and B, is well known on the Facebook group for coating off David Luiz absolutely systematically and winding everybody up in the process. It had to happen when Paul was in the shed end that David Luiz would make an unbelievable ricket. And you know what? He texted me the minute it happened. He said, "See."
Do you know what annoyed me more than the mistake itself, which obviously we got over, is the fact that he immediately turned around and tried to blame Czech for it. Turned around and said, "Well, where were you then?" So if Czech
was supposed to be telepathic.
If Czech had given him a call and he missed it, then fair enough. But I see no suggestion that he had.
I think there was none at all.
And that's what really, really wound me up about it, because he made the mistake and then he immediately tried to shift the blame to someone else.
It was a kind word would be lackadaisical. I mean, it was just. I mean, I have to say, I thought that most of the team were not very at it in the first half, but that was criminal lack of attention. But here's the thing, and I mean, as I said, it was especially for Paul, and me and him were winding each other up by text, because I was convinced that Luiz was going to make a worldie to shut him up, but sadly that didn't happen. But my thing is this, is that do we not have to accept the bad things that Luiz does in order for us to get the great things that he does? I mean, I'm a big fan. I love him. I mean, we had this out on the show last week as well. I'm a huge fan of David Luiz. I love what he brings to the game and the club and everything else. So I am prepared to accept that he's going to make, the odd rick now and again. Oh, are we right to take that view? I mean, let's face it. He captains Brazil. They absolutely love him there. They
won't do if he does something like that in the World Cup.
I mean, to be fair, I'm sure he has. And I just think that maybe they're prepared to forgive that kind of a player because of the other things that he does. But I certainly am, Paul. I sense that you're not.
I don't see why we should accept it, to be honest. I don't see why he can't work hard to take this out of his game rather than just being this lovable bloke that makes mistakes every now and then, because that isn't the sign of a top-class footballer.
I've got a theory about this. I've got another theory. Chidge is full of theories. All people called Paul hate on David Luiz.
But that's not
my
true.
Well, you, Crowder, I mean, anybody else who's called Paul
I just
that's
don't think
listening
we should
on the
blindly
show at the
accept
moment.
the fact that he's going to make
I love
mistakes
him.
like that. Because I mean, when was the last time you saw any Chelsea player make a mistake that bad?
Oh, I've seen not that bad. It has to be said, but all players make mistakes every game.
We've made a
Yeah,
lot
of course
of
they do.
bad shots though as well recently. The difference is when it goes to a goal and we let in a goal, you remember it more than when we could have scored when we don't score. Like a lot of Schürrle's earlier attempts, like against Everton away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of those passes,
I always say the hardest thing for a goalie is the fact that if anyone else makes a mistake, they've always got a goalie to cover. The goalie hasn't got anyone to cover for him, and in that sort of thing, although it wasn't like obviously Czech, it was hard for anyone else to sort of.
I'm sorry, but I've got to interrupt, and I mean, I'm going to actually upstage you here, Chadder. But I've just seen Tony Glover, and I should add, Tony, of course, is on the excellent podcast, The Podding Shed, and he is suffering from what can only be medically described as an incredibly sore rear end at the moment. For no suspicious reasons, he's been doing a bike ride, 300 miles he's ridden, and I believe you've done it, Tony, in which case, congratulations, fella, well done you. But he has said, Terry, I've often said Czech is no Schmeichel and doesn't boss his box like Schmeichel did.
Yep.
That's a very bizarre thing to say, but I like it.
Very few keepers are like Schmeichel.
Nah, but I think Czech is, but that's another story. Let's stick to the programme.
Can we just go with that very quickly? I was going to say that.
No, I don't want to.
Look, poor Gary
No, I
Bailey
don't
had
want
to
to.
listen to me go about this all match because I keep
just want
saying
to read
that
Tony's tweet out.
Czech cannot
Don't want to
command
hear
his
what he has to
box.
say about Czech.
I don't get me wrong. There's no goalie I'd rather have, but people need to acknowledge he doesn't command his box and he can't kick the ball.
But talking of people who can't command their box, you're well known for it, and I'm moving on at that point.
Talk about sore asses.
I would like to talk about Jose Mourinho, unless we've had enough of David Luiz.
Yeah,
Well, I was going to say that these are mental errors that can be
They
fixed.
are mental
and
errors,
he should tell us about that. Tonight they are, yeah.
Does it affect his game though afterwards? Did he?
He was
it was
awful
one of his
for the-
worst games he's had for us
Yeah.
ever.
Do you know what I think affected his game more than the mistake, to be fair? And that was getting booked for a completely stupid assault on a Cardiff player, which left him on, potentially. He looked like a red card West
And
Ham
he'd
player.
have done exactly the same thing in the second half when he came
Yeah.
forward, gave the ball away, and then chased after him if he hadn't already been booked. so.
Someone made the great point on Twitter that he's kind of overconfident, and it looks like he's, if he had a bit of competition for his place, maybe he'd buck his ideas up a bit, because he certainly can't be at risk of making those sort of simple mistakes on a weekly basis.
No, that's fair enough. I think that I trust Mourinho to iron them out. But as far as I'm concerned, I think he is the ideal pairing for Terry. Terry can organise it, and Luiz, like we've always had with Terry, is a fast, footballing central defender. Who can do a lot of the covering that you need for JT, who has never had any pace. Now, I would really like to talk about Jose for a second, because yet again, in another match, we see him turn it round by making some brilliant tactical changes in the game, which basically led to us winning 4-1 when, let's face it, 1-1. It was a bit, what's the word? It was like walking through treacle a bit, I felt. But then he made those changes. Second half, the tempo raises, Oscar comes on, and Bosch, they seem to go for it a bit more. What do you reckon, Darren?
Yeah, I don't disagree one bit with that. The only thing I worry about a bit is it's always the left back Mourinho takes off.
Why do you think he does that?
Well, there's an obvious reason. Branner can play.
Yeah.
Branner can play as part of a back three as a centre back.
Okay,
So
that is
if you
the
always
obvious reason.
The trouble is though with sacrificing the left back the old time. That is always his plan B, and he always reverts to plan B. He hasn't got a plan C. Doesn't keep. If I was Malky Mackay, I'd have been thinking, they need.
You'd be a dour, grumpy Scotsman moaning about everything if you were Malky Mackay, Darren.
Aside from that, if I was managing the opposition, I'd always say, I'd practice at training with attacking down the right hand side, because in that situation, if it's always the left back that comes off, that's where the opposition then needs to start countering going down that side. And we knew it was going to happen. We knew it was going to be the left back that comes off for it. And
But from a tactical sense, that isn't necessarily true, because both wings become more exposed, not just.
Well, no, I think Branner's more comfortable defending on the right side of a back three than David Luiz is on the left. But I think it's a risk. You're basically saying, I'm going to stick an extra player in midfield or up front. So there's kind of two tweaks to it, and I'm going to, have one player less at the back, and we'll see what happens. And I think, especially when you're at home, it does
against
suit
the team that doesn't attack. Yeah,
it does suit you.
You know what? I was really quite confused about one thing, though. I mean, why? I mean, we were actually. I mean, actually, I can meld this in with the next point, really, which was, I felt that it was quite frustrating watching us, on a team that was, parking the bus, which Cardiff were, we were still trying to break them down by playing through the middle, or the whole tick-attacker thing, or we were going down wide and Branner was putting in crosses for Drogba again, which seemed a bit pointless. And I was just itching for players like Hazard or Willian or Mata or even David Luiz, i.e. players who are capable of running at defences, because at least they would get some of the defenders or the midfielders to commit. One of those might have made a foul, which would have given us a free kick, or heaven forbid, we might have beaten them and created something. And actually, when Cardiff came out a bit in the second half, which to their credit, actually, when they were 2-3-1 down, they did have a go. The whole space opened up, and we were attacking at will, and we looked like scoring 3, 4, 5, 6. But what I didn't understand when we went 3 or 4, I'm not sure, but he brought Aspie on for Eto.
It was pretty much immediately after the second.
Yeah,
Immediately after the second.
Yeah. So it was like he'd kind of said, "Okay, job done. We ain't going to lose this. So I'll now kind of go back to how we were and restore that shape." But I was like thinking, well,
Well, it's not that he thought they weren't going to lose it. It's just that now he can revert back to the steady formation, and he knows Cardiff have to chase. So the need to attack isn't there because Cardiff are going to leave more spaces.
And it's how Mourinho, throughout his whole career, has always done it. He takes off the fullback, puts on a striker. We get a goal. He does the opposite thing. He takes off the striker, puts on a fullback. It works. He's always done it. You can't question it.
I tell you what, though. I mean, I not that I would ever question, Jose's managerial acumen. He knows more than I will ever know. But in a way, it's a bit like it seems to me like a bit of a waste of a substitution because it means that we've played 3, and we've seen it happen before. I mean, famously up at Newcastle when Wayne Bridge got injured and we were down to 10. In fact, we ended up being down to 9 men in that match. So it can be a bit risky, but I mean, it worked.
He famously with Bobby Robson, he said to Jose at half time before, should we make all 3 subs? And Mourinho said, "Mister, we have no choice but to do that." And they won the game then. And Bobby Robson did it, and it worked. Mourinho did it, it didn't work. It can't. He did it right that time. But like Mr. Bailey kept saying to me at the time, and like you said earlier, David Luiz, he looked like his red card waiting to happen. You think should he have come off instead? I know the unbalanced things of Bertrand, but. You just, at some point, you thought either at 2-1 or 3-1, David Luiz could get himself sent off.
All right. Very quickly, Cheddar, what are they saying on Twitter and Mixlr?
Yeah, as Rena said, they're loving 3 at the back. And DJ CFC 1905 said it would be nice to see us play with 3 at the back. But Harry raised a good point for Darren and said he hasn't had a plan C because he's not had to have a plan C yet.
But then what
I
happens?
disagree. Like Everton, for example, when we were 1-0 down, he took off Ashley Cole and he tried to change it, and that continued not to work. And if anything, it just destabilised everyone a lot more.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, sometimes he'll bring on an extra striker or an extra midfielder, so that there is a tweak there.
Bottom line is, I thought it was very, once they got their noses in front, and he made those changes, and Oscar, I think, made a massive difference, and it was just great, entertaining football. The crowd was really revved up. And we were scoring, at will, and it was great. It was entertaining. I mean, the second half for me was as entertaining as the first half was a bit treacly, as I said. But I enjoyed it. I tell you what I also enjoyed. It was a top day out, and I mention a few honourable people that I saw in the pubs around Chelsea. I saw Johnny T for most of the day. It was great to see him. Paul Smith was with him in the ground. Wayne in the Southern Cross. Greg, our producer, was there. Chelsea Chatter was there on the benches today. Oleg, Stu, Bunsey, Seb, Gus, True Blue Terry, Mr. X, Paul Crowder, and the rest of the Hand and Flower mob. I had a great fun seeing you, and I was very, very drunk at the end of it. But anyway, enough of me. After the break, it will be time for the Fannies.